Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anas Al-Faris, and I'm honored to be your MC for today. We'd like to welcome you all here in Thawal at this Saudi-US discussion event entitled Innovation to Impact, which is hosted by the King Abdullah University for Science and Technology, KAUST, in collaboration with the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, KAXT, as well as the Small and Medium Enterprise Authority. To start our event, I would like to first introduce the president of KAUST University, Dr. John Lu Chameau. Dr. John Chameau took office as president of KAUST on July 1st, 2013. He is also the president emeritus of the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in the United States, which he also led for 7 years prior to joining KAUST. He has served on a number of public and industry boards, including the Council of Competitiveness, John Wiley & Sons, MTS, Safran, and the Academic Research Council of Singapore. Dr. Chameau has had a distinguished career as a professor and administrator at Purdue University and Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech. He served as president of the Golder Associates, a geotechnical consulting company, before returning to Georgia Tech as Georgia Research Alliance Eminent Scholar and Vice Provost for Research. He eventually became Dean of its College of Engineering, the largest in the United States, and then Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. He has received numerous awards for his research and contributions as an educator and academic leader. He's a member of both the US National Academy of Engineering and French Academy des Technologies. Dr. Chameau received his PhD in earthquake engineering from Stanford University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chameau.
Good morning. I think I should wake you up. Good morning. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, and welcome to this Innovation to Impact Roundtable. Before I share a few thoughts, I would like to welcome and thank my friend, His Excellency Minister Khalid Al-Fallah. Minister Al-Fallah has been instrumental in conceiving and planning this event in anticipation of the visit of President Trump to the Kingdom. For those of you who have the opportunity to work closely with Minister Al-Fallah, you know that his dynamic pace, extremely dynamic pace, is amplified by his personal attention to the details of excellence. Thanks you, Khalid, for your commitment to research, discovery, and innovation through higher education and industry investments. I would also like to welcome His Highness Dr. Turki Saud Mohammed Al Saud, President of King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, and Chair of the Innovation to Impact Roundtable today. Today is another example of your leadership to transform research discoveries into applications for the Kingdom and the world. Dr. Turki, thank you for leading the planning of this event, along with Dr. Ghassam Ahmed Al Suleiman, Governor of the Small and Medium Enterprise Authority, and Mr. Nanmi Nasser, Executive Vice President of Administration and Finance at KAUST and Interim President of CAPSARC. I would also like to welcome President Raphael Reif and President Michael Crow, co-chairs of the Roundtable. It is an honor to host the excellencies from all around the Kingdom here today, and all of you who travel to KAUST from the United States and different parts of the Kingdom. Finally, I would like to thank the entire KAUST team for the countless hours they have dedicated to bringing this event to life. Thank you to the team. I just would like to share a few thoughts today on this topic of innovation, impact, and the catalytic role of research universities can play in this equation. Universities highly focused on science and technology, like KAUST, have historically played an integral role in the innovation economic development, and prosperity of a region or a country. In fact, going back to the 19th century, such institutions were often founded with the explicit intent to enable and drive innovation and economic development. A few years ago, I was asked by the Times Higher Education to write a brief article on the role of such universities in innovation and why some of them are very successful. Some of my remarks are still valid today, I believe, and may be useful to your discussions. These successful universities have become destinations for talent, discovery, and innovation. They not only support industry and educate a highly qualified workforce, but also they lead innovation and create new industries. A key element for success, I believe, is a relentless commitment to excellence in both education and research. This implies encouraging and enabling highly talented people to address important and difficult questions with passion. These destination universities encourage the pursuit of both discovery and innovation. To achieve this goal, they support a combination of curiosity-driven and problem-driven or mission-driven research, and they develop teams with talent across diverse disciplines. Innovation is then the translation of the research and discoveries made by these teams into products, technologies, and processes. The culture supporting technology and knowledge transfer from the universities to the innovation ecosystem is also critical to success. And even in the US, very few programs get it right. There must be synergy between the drive for discovery and a desire to address societal problems. This synergy and culture are fueled by a collaborative research environment, combined with an agile operational structure that welcomes interaction with university partners as well as diverse stakeholders in the economic area. In 2006, Karl Schramm, the CEO of the Kaufman Foundation, reviewed the universities in the US with the strongest record in innovation and knowledge transfer, and he concluded that those universities treat business people as allies and equals. They encourage their students to think about the business potential of their academic research, and they resist the temptation to monitor and regulate business relationships aggressively. These conclusions remain important to date, especially here in Saudi Arabia, as the transformation of the economy is underway. Ultimately, the most significant contribution and success of universities will result from the superior education of students, the young engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs we need in our communities. Great science and technology programs place their students in a creative, discovery-oriented environment where they learn not only to analyze and solve difficult questions, but maybe more importantly, also how to work in a diverse, international, and entrepreneurial community. The late King Abdullah set the vision for this university, KAUST, to become one of those destinations for research, discovery, and innovation. We are a collaborative, diverse, and international campus with partners from all over the kingdom and the world. We are providing flexible and sustained resources to our faculty and students to assure that they can focus their energy and passion on discovery and innovation. We encourage them to work on problems where innovation can have a dramatic impact on society and the world, including areas such as materials, food, water, energy, and environment. For all these reasons, we are honored to host this meeting on innovation, and I wish you the best in your deliberations during the rest of the day. Thank you.
It is my honor now to introduce His Excellency Khalid Al-Faleh, Minister of Energy, Industry and Mineral Resources. Engineer Al-Faleh serves currently as the chairman of the Saudi Arabian oil company, Saudi Aramco, board of directors. He's also the chairman of Saudi Arabian mining company, Ma'aden. He's also the chairman of the Saudi Geological Survey and the chairman of the Royal Commission of Jubail and Yanbu, and the chairman of Saudi Fund for Industrial Development, in addition to the chairman of Saudi Industries Property Authorities, Mudun, the chairman of the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, KAXT, as well as the King Abdullah City for Atomic and Renewable Energy, KCARE. He's also the chairman of the Saudi Exports Development Authority and the vice chairman of KAUST Board of Trustees. In addition, he has been previously and served as the Minister of Health, President and Chief Executive Officer of Saudi Aramco, Executive Vice President of Operations and Senior Vice President of Gas Operations and Industrial Relations at also Saudi Aramco. Mr. Al-Faleh was awarded the King Abdulaziz Medal of the First Class, Saudi Arabia's highest civilian honor for service to the country. He received his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Texas A&M and completed his MBA at KFUPM. He received an honorary doctorate from Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology as well. He was recognized as the Energy Intelligence Petroleum Executive of the year 2016. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Anas, and good morning, and a very warm welcome to our guests and partners who came all the way from the United States to be with us today as we get going and setting in motion this historic series of events that will proceed and prepare for one of the most historic summits that Saudi Arabia has in modern history. I want to thank His Highness Prince Turki, Dr. Turki, and KAUST team led by Jean-Louis Chamou, His Excellency Dr. Hassan from the SME Enterprises for collaborating and bringing together this innovative and impactful gathering today that has been titled Innovation to Impact. I think it's very fitting that as we undertake this summit between the world's most powerful, largest nation, the United States, and the leader and the center of the Arab GCC and Islamic world, that we start with something so foundational and so important for future generation, which is talking about innovation, about impact, about the youth, about trends that will shape the future for us. Very common when summits like these are happening. They're attempting to deal with problems of the past and solve issues of today. And that's going to happen, all of us know that, tomorrow and the day after, as the leaders of Saudi Arabia and the leaders of the United States go through their deliberations and their discussions on the political, geopolitical, security, as well as the economic terms. But I think the team here from the Saudi side, and also leaders from the US, who I should acknowledge and thank, Professor Reif and Professor Crow from MIT and Arizona State Universities, who are the leaders of the academic community, if I may be so presumptive to say that, having worked and listened to both of you to partner with us in driving the deliberations of today. And more important than the deliberations of today is the fact that we're going to take the outcome from what happens today and integrate it in the discussions of the next 2 days in Riyadh. Now, we all know about the bilateral summit. King Salman is going to host President Trump, who is recasting American policy in the 21st century. And King Salman, of course, we know since he took the reins of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has also launched the creation of a new Saudi Arabia, a new economy, a new society, a new integration within our region and the rest of the world. And this bilateral relationship is so important, so foundational for the success of both countries in achieving the new strategic shifts that they are undertaking. But in addition to the bilateral discussions that will take place over the next 2 days, there are also very important summits that will take place at the GCC level on Sunday, and then followed by a gathering of the Arab and Islamic leaders who are coming in force to Riyadh to be part of this historic week and these historic discussions. In addition to this, we have invited and received tremendous turnout from the business leaders. We have, as of yesterday, and the list keeps increasing, we have over 40 CEOs and leaders of essentially America's top corporations. Last night over dinner, I was reading the list to Professor Rife, and just like me, he was quite amazed how within 2 to 3 weeks, all of these people reworked their schedule to be with us. In fact, many of them are in Riyadh already having bilateral discussions and preparing for tomorrow and the day after. And it really is the top American companies, and of course their counterparts from Saudi Arabia who will be engaged with them in business discussions. Tomorrow will be an all-day forum culminating with meetings with His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, President of Council for Economic and Development Affairs, SEDA, and potentially we're working out an engagement with President Trump if we can fit into his schedule. And the outcomes of what you come up with today in terms of how do we integrate innovation and how do we create impact out of the innovation you're doing into the business relationship, the economies of the two nations is going to be a key ingredient. So while many conferences may look at some of the topics we're discussing today, very few of them that I know of are so well integrated into economic and then political events that are happening in succession in such fashion. So we're in a way making history on many fronts. We're recasting a relationship that has been instrumental, not only for two very important nations, the United States of America and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but the relationship between the two countries has been, continues today, and will be in the future one of the most pivotal and important relationships for global stability, security, and economic well-being. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. When the US pioneers from California came to Saudi Arabia in the 1930s looking for oil, it was indeed a pioneering effort, discoverers looking for the next frontier to find black gold as it was perceived and still is today. And when they unleashed the wealth, the natural resources of Saudi Arabia, I think without exaggeration, it has been probably the main driver for creating the economic transformation, globalization, and lifting billions of people out of poverty through the energy that has been provided to the world at large. Initially to the United States, as the United States was looking for more energy, but then, of course, to Europe and post-World War II construction, and then to Asia as Asia was coming into the new global order. That has, of course, continued, and until recently, the available of affordable energy that has been driven by Saudi Arabia and by the partnership between the United States and Saudi Arabia has been instrumental to that global economic stability. We all know the importance of the geostrategic relationship between the two and the political and security, and I will not elaborate on this. But we are today in a new era. Energy will continue to be important, and the kingdom will continue to be an investor and a stabilizer of global energy. This is one of the issues that I do when I have a few minutes, thinking of global energy stability and what we have to do to make sure that energy markets are stable and energy is flowing to the rest of the world. But we're not frozen in that, and I literally mean I do that in a few minutes, because what we're focusing on in Saudi Arabia is recasting and reconstructing the economy of Saudi Arabia for the future. Vision 2030 is about building on the strengths we have, whether it's our natural resources and oil, gas, mineral resources, a very strong and vibrant petrochemical industry, but also creating the industries of the future. Renewable energy has been launched and will be unleashed, not only in terms of projects that will be done with the private sector, but also, and most importantly, through the research and development that will create a step change in the effectiveness of renewable energy, from the generation to the transmission to the distribution to smart grids to managing supply-demand of energy to integrating our energy landscape with our surroundings. Vision 2030 recognizes that Saudi Arabia is in a unique geographical position. We are the connector of Asia, Africa, and Europe. And we want, when we talk about integrating Saudi Arabia, it's multifaceted. And part of that integration will be through energy transmission from east to west, leveraging and arbitraging on the opportunities that our strength in energy will provide us. We're also integrating logistically. As we build a causeway to Egypt and allow goods and services, thousands of kilometers of railway will be built. So how do we build the logistics of the future? What are the most advanced, smart rail systems that will transmit goods and people across these three continents as we integrate the kingdom? ICT, cloud computing, advanced computing, and connection through information is probably more important than everything I have said when I talked about logistics and energy connectivity. And healthcare and water scarcity, some of the challenges that the world faces but are acute here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Jean-Louis Chamou talked about it when he described the mission and vision of KAUST when it was established by the late King Abdullah. As we solve problems that may be acute for the kingdom, we're also solving problems that are already in place in some parts of the world or certainly are going to be coming. And many of those problems exist in the United States. There are water shortages, there are healthcare issues in the United States, there are fears of pandemics that need new biotechnology and biomedicine solutions that the kingdom is launching and that we want to leverage what is already taking place in the United States. So the theme of innovation to impact is very much appropriate for Vision 2030. It's very much appropriate for what the United States is trying to do with re-energizing the economy. The new administration keeps saying that 1% to 2% growth is not going to be adequate for the United States of America. And if you're going to achieve 3% to 4% growth in the new economies of the United States, you're going to have to turbocharge through innovation, through new technologies. The United States has been, of course, a leader. I'm not the one to tell the United States how to do this. Your technology has been differentiating America from the rest, and we want to be able to be partners in this and latch onto it and create our own innovative economy, knowledge economy going forward. A key ingredient also, Vision 2030, and it's part of our demographics, is the youth of Saudi Arabia. Vision 2030 is not just about growing the GDP. It's not just about growing new sectors in the economy. I think perhaps the most important and critical aspect of Vision 2030 is empowerment. Empowerment for the people at large, but empowerment in particular for the young people of Saudi Arabia, as well as for the women of Saudi Arabia. 70% of our people, this is well known, are below the age of 30. And not only are they large in number, but they are very strong in ambitions. My career does not satisfy my kids' career. They keep teasing me for having to spend 35 years in one company doing more or less the same thing. One of them is here, and he's laughing and chuckling because they think the way to do is to start up a company, to bring a new idea, and to change the world. And I wish him good luck, although I don't think he's going to do it, but I think he is probably a sample of many of our young people. And we want to give them that opportunity. Some of them will be disappointed, and they will try again, and they will try again, and ultimately they will have an impact of some kind on the economy of Saudi Arabia. But a few of them will really take Saudi Arabia to the next level, just like we've seen within startups and technologies in the United States and elsewhere in the world. So we want to catch up, we want to create those opportunities. Now, when we talk about innovation, and you're the experts, I hope you will give us the formula for this. I, with what little I know that there is a big distinction between innovation and invention. We have many people here from research and development, from the labs of KAXT and KAUST and other universities. We have people from the US who bring up a very strong presence in research and development and creating new inventions. And that's key. But we want to close the circle to move from invention to innovation. So the internal ecosystem within organizations is very important. How do you create the culture within a company, within a venture capital fund, within a university that nurtures invention into innovation? And the external ecosystem, the national laws and regulations, the funding is important, as well as the infrastructure. What do we need to do in ICT, in computing, and support within the two nations to accelerate the translation of invention to innovation? And of course, the next thing is how do we take innovation into impact? Ultimately, both nations have high ambitions to outgrow the rest of the world. Saudi Arabia is not content on being number 19 on the League of Nations. Even as the importance of oil gradually declines over the decades and generations that are coming, we want to grow much faster than the rest of the world. And our rank in the global league, we wanted to approach the top 10, despite our population being relatively small. So how do we do that? Again, we need to turbocharge ourselves with innovation that is being quickly translated to impact. So my colleagues in Saudi Aramco keep bragging about the accelerated rate through which they're registering IP, and I shrug my shoulder and say, show me the impact of that IP. The fact that you're going from 30 patents a year a few years ago to 300 this year or next year is nice, but where is the impact? What are we doing? Where is the step change in our performance, in our income, in our bottom line, or top line of the company? The same thing, Jean-Louis Chamou, in every meeting of our board, he brags about how well we are being cited and how KAUST is one of the most cited university by faculty, and we clap and we're very proud. But at the end of the day, where is the impact? So in our deliberations today, we want to continue to have these metrics, these leading indicators to improve. I don't want to take anything away from patent registrations and citations by faculty and by institutions, but I think the most important thing at the end of the day is how are we translating this to impactful, measurable impact on economies, on the well-being of people, on startups, on all of the things we will be able to measure going forward. And it's these ideas, hopefully, that are new, that are coming from the diverse mix that I see in this auditorium today, that is going to be very, very helpful and in high demand when we convene both the economic forum today and subsequently the national summits that will take place over the next 2 days. The diversity of the group here couldn't be designed better. We have academia, we have research, we have venture capitalists, we have people in the startup community, and we have the youth. We have young people here physically. I understand from Nadmi that we even have people connected from other parts of Saudi Arabia that are going to be enriching the discussion as well as taking away from it. My last thought is that I hope and I urge that this does not become a one-event phenomenon. It is being catalyzed by a summit, which is historic. The summit is not going to be repeated. There is only one first time, which is going to happen tomorrow when President Trump have his first international visit and comes to Saudi Arabia. But the relationship will be ongoing, and in fact the relationship will accelerate going forward given all the preparation and all of the ingredients for success that have been prepared for the relationship. So what I hope will come out of this is also ideas on how to sustain the momentum. A great momentum has been created preceding even our session this morning, just by the excitement that I sensed last night over dinner and the discussion with many people and the emails I received about how people are looking forward to this. So what we want to do is not only to maintain, but to increase the momentum going forward. Some of this will be structured, and some of this will be spontaneous and natural. The connections that you will all make with each other and the contacts need to be eased and facilitated and supported by the different enterprises that are here, whether it's KAUST, or the U.S. institutions that are represented here. And we need to be risk-taking. I mean, when I see Dr. Ghassan, I hope with funding that's available to the SME Commission that we're going, and with Nadmi and John Liu and with the funds that have been created for startups, I think we need to lubricate these engines through systems and processes, but also through risk-taking, through funding, through support, through collaborative relationships. Some of them I could think of, and some of them I'm sure you will think of and will advise us about tomorrow. So once again, I simply came here, flew in, although I'm nursing a bad flu, because I had to be with you last night and this morning to wish you the best in terms of enjoying the interactions that you're going to have today, and they should be fun and enjoyable given the nature of the discussions and the ideas that you will be discussing, and also wishing you luck in coming up with indeed very impactful and innovative ideas that are going to move the needle for the nation, Saudi Arabia and the United States, move the needle for the institutions you represent. Each one of us is accountable to our organizations. The time we spend traveling and coming here, we have to come with an outcome. But I would remind you also that what I'm looking for is also to move the needle and have impact for the most important of all three, which is the young people who are one day going to look back and say, what was the event that created this opportunity that I am enjoying today? And I hope they would look back at your gathering today and say that was a catalytic event that created an opportunity for me and for my children and grandchildren. So thank you very much, and I wish you the best of luck.
Now, as per our agenda, we will start our first panel of the day, which will hopefully set the stage and provide an overview of this event. In this panel, I will start by a short introduction of the chair and co-chairs of this event, followed by a 5-minute opening remark by each of our chairs, after which we will have what I'm sure will be a fairly rich discussion. With that said, I'll start with the introductions. First, His Highness Dr. Turki bin Saud bin Mohammed Al Saud, President of King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. Dr. Al Saud serves as the chairman of the board of directors of the Saudi Company for Technology Development Investment, Taqniya. He's also the chairman of the supervisory committee for the National Science Technology Innovation Plan, NSTIP. He's also the chairman of the board of trustees of the custodian of the Two Holy Mosques Award for Inventors and the Gifted. He's the chairman of the administrative committee of the Saudi Energy Efficiency Center, as well as the chairman for the supervisory committee for the custodian of the Two Holy Mosques Initiative for Solar Water Desalination. He's a member of the board of directors of Military Industries Cooperation. He's a member of the Civil Defense Council and a member of the International Advisory Council for the King Abdullah Petroleum Studies and Research Center, CAPSARC. He's also a member of the board of trustees for Al Faisal University. Dr. Al Saud received his PhD in aeronautics and astronautics from Stanford University. Second, Professor and Dr. Rafael Raif. Dr. Raif is the 17th president of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He is a champion for both fundamental science and MIT's signature style of interdisciplinary problem-centered research. He is also pursuing an aggressive agenda to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. In addition, his central focus has been on the development of the Institute's latest experiments in online learning, MITx and edX. In 2014, Dr. Raif launched the MIT Environmental Solutions Initiative. In 2016, Dr. Raif launched the Engine, an accelerator specifically geared to help tough tech ventures deliver innovations that address humanity's great challenges. In addition, in 2013, he launched the MIT Innovation Initiative. Dr. Raif is leading an ambitious, decade-long development initiative in Kendall Square. On May 6, 2016, he announced the $5 billion MIT Campaign for a Better World. Dr. Raif has been a member of MIT faculty since 1980, and he has served as the director of MIT's Microsystems Technology Laboratories, Associate Department Head of Electrical Engineering, and the Head of Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, and as the Provost. He is an elected member of the National Academy of Engineers and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Raif also received his PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University. So we have 3 Stanford grads on today. With that said, please do join me in welcoming both our chair and co-chairs. We'll start now very quickly giving both our chair and co-chairs a few minutes to give their opening remarks. I'll start with His Highness Dr. Turki Al Saud. So please. You can do it either way. I think. Sure.
Good morning, everyone. Professor Raphael Reif, President of MIT, Professor John Chameau, President of KAUST, Dr. Ghassan Suleiman, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to be with you today to participate in this event and discuss how science, technology, and innovation can have huge social and economic impact on a wide range of issues, such as education, health, water, energy, artificial intelligence, Industry 4.0, advanced materials, and transportation. We are thrilled to have this joint event with our US partners, and we look forward to having a fruitful participation in this exciting period in the Kingdom history. The Kingdom approved the National Science and Technology Policy by the Council of Ministers in 2002, and in 2007, the Saudi government established the National Science, Technology and Innovation Plan, an ambitious long-term strategic framework to manage the nation's scientific development and transition to a knowledge-based economy. More than 6 billion riyals were allocated to the first phase of the NSTIP, which ran from 2007 to 2014 and managed by KAUST. Ambitious initiatives launched by KAUST, such as the Solar Desalination Initiative, the Saudi Human Genome Project, Badr Technology Incubation and Acceleration Program, and the creation of Saudi Technology Development and Investment Company, TAQNIA, have expanded the country's scientific and technological reach. The fruits of these developments, in addition to the establishment of KAUST, have been reflected in international indices tracking patents and scientific research published, and indices measuring the contribution of authors, such as the Nature Index. The steady growth of STI ecosystem has also been reflected in the evolving status of Saudi Arabia in global innovation competitiveness indices. However, Saudi Arabia still faces key innovation challenges. These include limited talented human capital, low women participation, limited R&D expenditures by public and private sector, weak linkages between research institutions and industry, weak local regulation governing intellectual property rights, and almost non-existence of innovation-oriented companies. Moreover, our experience showed us that having mature components inside the STI ecosystem are important, but more critical is having fully developed linkage and collaboration among those components, or what is called balanced innovation. The Kingdom has recently launched the Saudi Vision 2030. This vision aims to improve citizens' lives, promote economic growth, and strengthen a nation that is effectively governed and responsibly enabled. The National Transformation Program, NTP, is launched across many government bodies, including KAUST, with many interim targets to 2020 established in light of relevant regional or international benchmarks. The total budget of NTP is about $120 billion, with 60% of funding from government and 40% from the private sector. To address national innovation challenges and barriers, KAUST fundamentally aligned its NTP 2020 initiatives with the overarching development goals of Vision 2030. These initiatives are established to promote innovation while meeting the following objectives: localization and development of technology in large domestic spending sectors, support research and development to ensure the sustainability of the local content development system, enhance the development of infrastructure and necessary facilities, support emerging technology companies with added value, strengthen the capability of small and medium-based companies, and support local content through development of nationally qualified professionals. Finally, the role of international collaboration in promoting innovation for tackling social issues needed to be emphasized. CAXT has taken several steps in this direction. Its establishment of Technology Leaders Program through the implementation of joint Center of Excellence programs to expand its international collaborations with leading institutions in academia and industry in the US and other countries, such as Stanford University, MIT, Caltech, Harvard, UC Berkeley, Northwestern, Michigan, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, Oxford, Cambridge, and Boeing to enhance the quality and productivity of its R&D programs. The established Joint Centers of Excellence have been instrumental in attracting young Saudi researchers as it advances their professional R&D careers by providing them with the opportunity to complete their graduate education in the leading universities in the world. I'm looking forward to elaborating on some of these issues during the discussions. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm quite frankly honored to be here. His Highness, Dr. Turki, I want to say that this is, as Minister Al-Fali mentioned, is truly an historic moment for the kingdom, and I'm just delighted to be participating in that historic moment. Let me also say that in my view, as well as Mr. Al-Fali said, and Prince Turki, Vision 2030 for the kingdom does offer a very promising new future for the kingdom, but also, I would argue, for the region as well as for the world. In this roundtable that we're going to focus on innovation to impact, I would like to just spend a couple of minutes to discuss not just the roadmap, that's going to be the focus of the morning, but basically discuss where innovation comes from in the first place. Yes, we need to figure out how to make impact from innovation, but where does it come from, how to generate it, how to stimulate it, how to incentivize it. And I'm going to make a point very similar to what President Shamouz said this morning. I'd like to make the point that universities play an important and necessary role in innovation creation. It's by far not sufficient. There is much more that is needed, and we're going to spend the morning discussing that. It's not sufficient, but it's absolutely necessary. And I think it's a good moment to, in this forum, to remind you of something you already know, I'm certain, that, so where do universities come from? Many people have, in history books, say that universities were created in Bologna, the first one about 1,000 years ago, when in truth, as probably most of you know, universities actually started in Fez, in Morocco, 100 years before the one in Bologna. Although, of course, if you now like the idea, let me remind you the IP protection for that idea long expired. So let me just try to make the point about why innovation, where it comes from, is important for us for this morning discussion, and why is a university play a crucial, necessary role. First of all is the issue of education. Innovation comes from educated people, people educated to innovate, to think, to create. Education just provides the tools for all that to happen. A great example, of course, one of many, and this is just historical now, is MIT. It was created over 150 years ago. It was created to accelerate the Industrial Revolution undergoing in the US at the time. And it did fulfill its mission. And the way it did that then and the way it does so now is by educating people with a science-based, hands-on, problem-centered education. It's an approach that has prepared innovators to succeed as not just in carrying out jobs, but in job creation and in entrepreneurship. And I would like to also emphasize this morning that just recently, I think a week or two ago, thanks to a Saudi organization, Community Jameel, we announced what we call the Jameel World Education Laboratory. And it's a global collaborative effort in which we want to network with educators worldwide to improve the preparation of people in developing countries for jobs in the new economy, not also to take those jobs and be successful in those jobs, but create those jobs. And this is something that would hopefully as well create an environment for collaboration between us and universities in the kingdom. So the first reason for the role of universities in innovation is education. And as Minister Al-Fali mentioned this morning, I'm aware of that 70% of the people in the kingdom are under 30 years old. You have a tremendous human capital that with education will certainly implement and carry out and achieve the Vision 2030. The second important point that I would like to make in my 2 minutes here is that innovation also comes from an interplay, and I'm using the word interplay, between basic science, applied science, and problem solving in an interdisciplinary approach. I'm not talking about a sequential move from basic science to applied science to problem solving. I'm talking about an interaction. And to explain what I mean by that, I'm going to just share one example of something we just announced a few months ago. So we have this neuroscientist at MIT who, her job, what she wants to do is to do science to get a Nobel Prize. And hopefully she's going to be well on her way to do that. She's studying how the brain works, basic science. She discovers something, and she's talking to engineers that have labs near her at MIT. In discussing with engineers, they realized that maybe that discovery that she had with some idea the engineer had about how to apply it could actually be used to address Alzheimer's disease. So they called a clinician, an MIT faculty member that has a clinical medical degree and works at the hospital in research. So the three of them converge on an applied approach, an engineering technique to try the idea. And to make a long story short, they try an idea in mice, and the very good news is that it works. For the first time ever, brains with Alzheimer's could stop the progression and start regressing. That's the first time has ever been discovered. Of course, laboratory mice. The next thing to do is, well, you need human trials. You need to perfect the technique. So what do? You start a company, which is what they did. And that's just announced just a couple of months ago. The actual discovery was announced, I think, last November. The point that I'm making is you need the interplay between basic science, applied science, I would call engineers, and innovators. And that's how the impacts that change the world can actually happen. So the bottom line, and I'll then sit down and entertain some questions, is that universities play a key ingredient, a key role, a necessary role. And institutions like those exist in the kingdom. CAUS is a great example, as you heard from President Chameau. There are others, KFUPM and others in the room. So that ingredient, that component is here. It's a matter of fine-tune them to prepare people for the new economy, not just to get into those jobs, but to create those jobs. The education of the youth is extremely important and is the heart of the future of the kingdom. And the other point is the idea of carrying out, not ignoring the interplay between basic science, applied science or applied research, and problem solving. That's really where innovation that can make a difference in the world can occur. And let me just repeat that this is one angle of what's important. Much more is important for an innovation ecosystem, but in universities, as President Chameau said, are at the heart of it. So with that, I think we're ready for questions. Thank you.
So we'll now start the discussion. I think I'm fairly fortunate to say I'm one of the very few who've had the pleasure of working in both institutions. But this also, I must confess, provides me with a rare opportunity for some payback, if you may. So this is my moment to at least try to put both of them on the spot. But more on a serious note, I have seen how both institutions function. MIT as a world-leading academic institution in many fields, and CAXT as a leading national lab and science agency in the region. There are many similarities, of course, in both institutions, and their strong interest, of course, in research and development, although with MIT being an academic institution focusing more on the R, while at CAXT being a national lab having more emphasis as well on the D. However, both institutions are also part of very different innovation ecosystems. One, of course, being located in the US, and the other being located in Saudi Arabia. Since we started our introductions and opening remarks with His Highness Dr. Turki Al Saud, I'll have my first question being directed to Dr. Raif, and it is in the following. How important is having a mature innovation life cycle to any nation? And from your perspective, how do you see the US innovation ecosystem evolving in the next few years, and what lessons can we learn here in the Kingdom?
Thank you. So I think innovation and a knowledge-based economy has to be an important part of any economy of any nation. If that does not happen, the innovation happening somewhere else will actually put a particular nation without that ecosystem at a major disadvantage, and the gap economically will keep increasing in the wrong direction. So I think innovation and a knowledge-based economy has to be part of any nation in the world in terms of developing and incentivizing it. And I do hope and believe that the Kingdom is very much in their way to create that kind of economy in this country. How does it work in the United States is a model that has been very successful and has worked like this for maybe the last 60 years or so, since the Second World War. And in a very simplified basis, the federal government, by and large, support basic science research. That's their responsibility, that's their job. And they do that in many ways, but in one of the institutions they do so is an American academic institutions. There are also research labs in which they do so. That is critical because what they do by funding basic science, they just let the basic science create the innovation in whichever direction it goes. If they were to, if the whole support of science in America were to be left by companies supporting it, well, companies will support the kind of research that will benefit the industry sector, which is a very good thing to do, but disruptions rarely happen that way. So the basic science support from the federal government is the one that allows not just developing new science and new knowledge and new tools, but makes room to create the disruptions that it has been the essence of any innovation economy. So basic science is funded by the federal government. Then there is applied science, there is applied research, there is just focus on problem solving. A significant fraction of it also comes from the federal government, but there are many other sponsors, and industry plays a significant role there. From that interplay of basic science and applied science, federal government support and industry support, innovation occurs. Very many ideas about how to do things better, how to do things differently. Ideas come out of that interplay. Very often, those ideas are licensed to companies that then bring them into the product line. Very often, companies don't have a product line in which those ideas can be fit, and the way the ideas go to the marketplace is through startup companies. Minister Al-Fali mentioned jokingly about Saudi Aramco and the growth of patents that he was welcoming. I mentioned about 300 patents the last few years. Well, we typically, MIT gets awarded in a typical year about 300 patents, as a matter of fact. And a great deal of those patents, those ideas come from funding that was incentivized or supported by the federal government. But then again, many of those patents get licensed to companies. Now the private sector plays a role. And typically, in a given year, 20 to 25 companies get started from that IP. And that's, again, the private sector role. So the point that I'm making is this is a whole landscape that goes from basic science that the federal government takes responsibility for, all the way to a mix of federal government and industry supporting applied science, all the way to the private sector picking up the ideas, either in licensing IP for their companies or supporting the creation of startup companies. And I see that model continue to evolve for the foreseeable future.
So now to Dr. Turki, I'd like to ask you the same question. How do you see the innovation ecosystem evolving in Saudi Arabia? And how mature is the innovation life cycle in the kingdom? And how do you see it, again, evolving within the Saudi Arabian Vision 2030?
As was mentioned by Professor Raif, that innovation or that really comes out from the universities, the research institutions, basic research plays a major role, and also the government support is essential in this. This aspect, the kingdom has addressed that. I mentioned the National Science Technology Policy and the plan enacted in 2007. So there is support for basic research in the kingdom, and it will expand, especially in the 2030 program. But the environment, I think what was mentioned, there is an environment that needs to exist. So we have the research institutions, we have the support for basic research. There is also national institutions such as CACs that can help in the D part, developing those ideas into a product, and we have examples in collaboration with COST. But I think there is a major missing piece that is essential for any innovation to survive as it is done in the US, and that is the existence of companies, industries that benefit from this innovation and be part of this interplay as was mentioned by Professor Wright. And I think it's an opportunity for the ministry to play, and I would have answered His Excellency, Mr. Al-Farih, when he mentioned that he's asking for an impact, whether from all these research institutions. Actually, the ministry, which is doing now, need to play to create those industries that can really, it takes two to tangle. I mean, you need that entity. We don't have in the kingdom, except in small sectors, the industries that will be the partners to acquire some of those, either license the technology or acquire some of the startups. So we don't have any exit for many of these startups, and therefore they will not survive in an environment that doesn't have the industry. So that's what we need, and actually that's why when we created Taqniya, the first thing we did is concentrate on establishing industries, advanced industries that will benefit from the R&D. So that's, I think, the major missing piece in the kingdom, and I think the Vision 2030 will certainly help to establish, and I think the role of the Ministry of Energy and Industry is essential. Actually, the answer is with Mr. Al-Faleh, to bridge this gap for innovation.
I think this leads me to actually, this is a nice segue to my second question now. And I'll go back again to you, Dr. Raif. The U.S. has been mentioned all day, a hub for innovation and having R&D facilities and presence from companies from all around the world. MIT is undoubtedly has been at the heart of all of this, with many U.S. and international companies establishing their R&D labs, specifically in Kendall Square, including our own Saudi Aramco. My question to you is, how do you believe that is happening, and what are the main drivers to achieve such success? How do we make it, and the reason I'm moving that is eventually for Saudi Arabia, how do we learn to bring in R&D companies?
Thank you. Indeed, that is the situation, at least in the greater Boston area. We do have quite a few companies in different sectors, mostly in the biotech, pharmaceutical, energy, with their actually global R&D situated very near MIT. So, but why do they do that? And And what's the formula? It's just, what do they want? Just two simple things, or three simple things. One is, and the most important one, is they're competing for talent. The talent people are the heart of everything. They're just looking for the best talent. And by being located near us, they are hoping that they can interact with us and having the interplay that Prince Turki was talking about with our students and our faculty, they'll have access to the best talent coming out of MIT. So that's number one. Number two, they want to be in an environment in which they are buzzing with ideas. The ideas of where the future is going to happen, it's just happening in the neighborhood, happens in the conversation. And they want to be where the buzz is so that they can decide which idea to implement or which idea to reject, but they want to be where ideas are being generated. And third, they want to be where the startups are happening, because they want to be able to have first sight, exposure to the best ideas coming out of a place like MIT and other universities nearby, and startups, so they can very early acquire them when they see they're having some possible success. So if you were to imagine how would you do that here, well, you have the best human capital in the world right here in the kingdom, because the population is so young. Educating them for the jobs of the future is something that will attract companies to be here, because they would like to recruit them. But then, of course, having an environment in which ideas are creating young startup companies, and of course, as Prince Turki said, more needs to be done to incentivize that. That will also attract companies to be here. But the asset, the main issue, the main reason they want to be near us and near universities like ours is talent. Companies need talent for the new economy. They go where they are. And that's why some of them go where they go in the United States, and some of them go outside the US where they see the talent exists for them to recruit them.
Excellent. So I think I'll go with a similar question to you, Dr. Turki. Saudi Arabia has been and have been keen on having many international companies, and specifically, due to our also event today, specifically US companies, having bigger R&D presence within the kingdom. Although we do have a few examples here and there, like Dow here in KAUST, the number of US companies setting shop and doing R&D within the kingdom still fairly remains low. How do you see that changing in the next few years? And do you believe Saudi Arabia can be a hub for international R&D within the next decade?
Thank you. I think, things that Professor Raif mentioned are essential elements anyway in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. But the picture in the kingdom, certainly we can deal with many things, especially in this 2030 transformation. There is a huge effort really in the localization of the industry, and there is huge effort to attract companies to locate here, establish industries, and also establish R&D facilities. But we need to work with those companies to give them guarantees that this would, that we can be a partner in this effort. There are things we have to do and are essential on the legal basis, and actually KAUST has done a study, and I think also now the Authority for Small and Medium Enterprises is also taking a leadership in this role to change the laws to attract venture capital and also make it easy to start companies in the kingdom. And the kingdom has certainly a lot of funding programs that can fund the industry, which is very important. Capital is very important. Even in the US, it's either Silicon Valley or Route 128. I mean, it's a few places that have the attraction, so the venture capital is important. The kingdom doesn't have really a strong venture capital yet. We have few efforts, such as Taqniya Riyadh Venture Capital. We started and we're working, and we started some investment, and I'm sure there are others, but it's really not a major effort, and there is interest in expanding that. So there is effort in the kingdom, and I'm sure by 2020 we will have solved many of these because the government is committed. One area that I will be willing to announce to one of the companies, and we are working on, is this talent, as was mentioned by Professor Raif, is companies look for talent. I think the effort or the initiative we'd like to take in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor is that we will work with the companies to guarantee to them that we will provide to them the talent they need, guaranteed. And we will do all the training, all the necessary efforts to bring talented, skilled, highly technical, capable Saudis to work on those companies, part of the collaboration. Of course, another package has to be the research funding and commercialization of research. So all of these packages, I think if they are done and done right, we can attract many of these industries.
So I'll pick on something, Dr. Raif, you mentioned on jobs of tomorrow. The theme of this event is innovation to impact, but that also brings a lot of change. And in many cases, these changes cause significant disruption. For example, as was earlier mentioned, AI and automation are really major changing forces. But they also change the workforce as we know it. And many of today's jobs will disappear in a few years, and in many cases, we are unaware of what are the new jobs of tomorrow. I'm sure this is an issue that concerns our younger audience that needs to decide what fields to actually study, but also concerns our older audience who need to learn how to cope with such disruption. Now, my question to you is, how do you see MIT dealing with such disruption, and how are you training for the jobs of tomorrow?
Excellent question. How much time do I have to answer?
Well, we're running out of time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a crucial question. Let me just start the answer with the last point you asked, which is how is MIT educating people to prepare them? I think what is particularly important is to, and any educator knows that, it's not so much to prepare people for the jobs of now, but to prepare them not to be afraid to learn about new things, not to be afraid to learn. I think to prepare them in a way that they feel empowered, they can learn anything, anytime. And there are ways in which we actually do exactly that. And you have done experiments on that in which you can see students being prepared in a particular different way. And some of them are fearless in terms of they are unafraid of taking on new tasks, and some of them are just much more shy about taking on new tasks. And there are ways to prepare them to be fearless. So I think that is important, because what we're facing in the US right now, and not just the US, in many countries, is that we have people who have been doing a particular job for a number of years. And they are afraid that the new jobs are not so hard to learn the skills for those jobs, but they are afraid to make the jump. And that is a problem. And even though we want to and we can, and they can be retrained and re-educated for those jobs, the fact that they are uncomfortable and quite frankly afraid to learn new things is a problem. So we have to prepare a population from their youth, which is what the kingdom has plenty of, to prepare them, educate them in a way that they are fearless when it comes to new changes. Disruptions will continue to occur. Disruptions have always occurred, always. We used to be, in the US, we used to be being transported from one place to the other with a horse pulling a carriage. And now when the cars were invented, then these riders just lost their jobs. That would always happen. The difference now is that has always been a slope of change, and society was able to adjust to that slope of change. The retraining was relatively easier, and people were getting prepared for the new jobs. What's happening right now is the rate of change is very fast. It's much, much faster. And society has not been prepared, did not do enough preparation to get people ready for the new jobs. So new jobs will continue to happen. And we have a CEO advisory board. Many of the CEOs coming to Riyadh actually on Friday, on Saturday, yes, Friday, tomorrow. They come to MIT for 1 day a year to talk to us about what their issues are and so forth. And one thing that I've been hearing from them for the last number of years is, and with this expression, I have all these people that I'm laying off because they have the wrong skills and cannot learn the new skills, and all these vacancies that I have for people with the new skills that I cannot find. So the people are there. It's just they are there for the wrong jobs. And that's the reality they face, which is why I go back to say talent is what they're after. They have to fill these jobs, and they don't find the people for them. What places like MIT, like CAUS, like AFUPM can do, and other institutions in the kingdom, in your case, it's not so much retraining people for the new jobs, but training them to be fearless when new jobs come, training them to realize, yes, they learn how to do this, they can learn how to do that too. That's part of the education we need to provide them. For countries like the US, the retraining part, that is a big issue. We're trying to figure out how to do that at scale. In fact, President Crow is doing quite some things in ASU in terms of educating the next generations, techniques that can be used to retrain people. That is an important challenge of today. And let me just say that I thought that was the US issue only. A few months ago, I visited a country that I would not name, and the prime minister of that nation wanted to talk to me. I'm not a politician. I don't run a country. I barely can figure out how to run a simple university. But that person wanted to talk to me. We spent an hour talking, and I didn't know what he wanted to talk to me until I arrived there. The first question, and the only question he asked for the whole hour, is, what do I do with job retraining? We just don't have the people for the jobs we need, and I have a lot of people unhappy in my country because there are no jobs for them. So I don't think it's an issue of the US, although it's hurting the US. It's also almost a global issue, and indeed we're trying to figure out in what way we can help that issue at scale.
I'll have the same type of same question to you, Dr. Turki, as well. How is the kingdom at large dealing with such disruption, and CACS specifically, in training its researchers and in designing its research portfolio?
First of all, I think, by the way, the kingdom is much easier than the US in this case, because an advanced country that has a committed industry has a certain inertia that is very difficult to adapt to these disruptions, such as, for example, automation and Industry 4.0 and so forth. Since the kingdom is starting now to establish this, I think we should be looking at the future industries, future technologies, and design the system that way. So I think it is much easier for us since we are in the beginning in this. Also, CACS has established technology forecasting, a National Center for Technology Forecasting. And in fact, we have members of the collaborative joint centers are advising us on this. So we need to forecast future technologies and then create programs, whether at CACS or even working with other institutions in the kingdom, to adapt to those future changes. So I think that is an essential element of the strategy to deal with these changes.
So I think I'm coming to closing with the last set of questions for both our chairs here. I'll start with you again, Dr. Raif. This event is designed to enhance collaboration between both nations, Saudi Arabia and the US. What are your thoughts on what each nation should be getting from this event? And for our participants in today's event, what are your expectations for them throughout this day?
I think there is a huge opportunity here for both nations. I'm going to speak very parochially to make my point. Anything that if we do together, we can accomplish more than what we can do by ourselves, would be a great opportunity. There are many things that if we do things jointly, we can accomplish more than if we do it alone. And let me just think parochially about MIT. We are very interested in clean energy, in addressing renewable energy, in making the extraction of even oil and gas today much more efficient. That's extremely important, we believe, for the world, and there are many faculty and students interested. To do that, we can certainly make progress much faster if we partner with tremendous company like Saudi Aramco, and in which we in fact are. A huge issue for us that I think is going to be an issue for the world. It is an issue today. It's going to get much worse by 2050. The access to fresh water, how to make fresh water accessible in an inexpensive way. That, to me, is another global crisis coming that we have to address. Yes, we can make progress alone, but here in the kingdom, you know a great deal about desalination and about addressing freshwater issues. We can learn and do much more by working together with you. What about food? I think we have a huge issue. It's going to be a much bigger issue as the population of the world continues to grow. We are doing some work on basically reproducing the best agricultural environment in an artificial way in a building at MIT. Who knows a great deal about agricultural issues? Who is suffering that extremely in the area of arid domain, like the kingdom here? So areas, I just identified 3 areas in which just an institution like ours would benefit by collaborating with you. And I think, you know, as you look at your companies, your institutions, the things that you care deeply about, you're going to find areas in which if you were to collaborate with the kingdom, you will do much more and much better than doing it alone. And I would argue the same thing from the kingdom side.
Same question to you, Dr. Turki. What is in it for both nations, and how do you want to motivate our participants today?
I think, as was mentioned again by Professor Raif, that there has to be a benefit for joint effort. And in research, in fact, in the US, if you look at some of the known companies, in the last 10 years, they decided to open joint labs working such as IBM, Intel, and others. Used to be they're doing all the work, and they decided they cannot do it alone, and they have to go and team up with others internationally. So it is imperative to work together. Certainly funding and infrastructure is important, but also, as was mentioned by Professor Raif, there are certain things that are peculiar to the kingdom and can add value to it. Areas such as in the oil and gas area and the petrochemicals, because of the kingdom really is a major player here. There are lots of industries in this field. Collaboration in this field is I think, has a great potential. Areas in water, because of desalination, we desalinate almost 20% of all desalinated water. So there is a huge experience and possibilities of applying many of these technologies. In materials, because the kingdom has huge mineral resources, has huge construction. In fact, the construction industry is almost 20% of the economy, or more than that. So there is a huge construction in the kingdom. And materials in general has a great potential. And I know CAUS is also looking at materials and doing a lot of work here. CACS is also doing, most of our international collaboration, by the way, is on material, advanced materials. And health. If you look at communicable diseases, the kingdom has the pilgrimage. We get more than 3 million per year from all around the world. So the potential of disease and communicable disease and dealing with it is important, and the kingdom can offer a lot in this area. So there is the peculiar problems that give the kingdom a specific, and of course renewables, because of the kingdom vast resources for solar energy. All of these provide the potential for collaboration. On top of that, the ecosystem, I mean, the infrastructure is fantastic. What we need is the gaps I mentioned before, but once we have those bridged, and the venture capital and the industrialization and funding for research, all of that, I think, can contribute to this. I will add one important element, and that is this fund, the SoftBank Vision Fund, which the kingdom has contributed $45 billion, and it's the largest fund in the world, $100 billion. It's a technology fund. And certainly, I met with the head of SoftBank in Japan, and he is very much keen in investing in companies and establishing industries in the kingdom. And therefore, many of those companies will be interested to establish capabilities in the kingdom to get that kind of support.
Excellent. So with that, that was the end of my last question. Please do join me in thanking both our chair and co-chair of this session. Thank you. Our event continues. Now we have a quick introduction on the Innovation Opportunities Roundtable as our agenda really currently is described. I will introduce now Dr. Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State University. Dr. Crow took office as president of Arizona State University on July 1st, 2002. Under his leadership, ASU has established more than a dozen new transdisciplinary schools and large-scale research initiatives. These include the Biodesign Institute, the Julian Global Institute of Sustainability, incorporating the School of Sustainability, and the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. Dr. Crow was previously Executive Vice Provost of Columbia University, where he also was Professor of Science and Technology Policy in the School of International and Public Affairs. As Chief Strategist of Columbia's research enterprise, he led technology and innovation transfer operations, establishing Columbia's innovation enterprises. He played the lead role in creation and founding director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University, and in 1998 founded the Consortium for Science Policy and Outcomes, dedicated to linking science technology to optimal social, economic, and environmental outcomes. He is an elected fellow of the American Association for Advancement of Science and the National Academy of Public Administration. He's also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the U.S. Department of Commerce National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. He has authored many books and articles and received his PhD in public administration from Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs in Syracuse University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Crow.
Thank you, and good morning. It's exciting to be here at an important point in history where the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as it looks to its future, and the United States, as it looks to its future, is finding an opportunity to partner together in ways in which we can create the future in ways that are very different than the past. And what I mean by that is we have an absolutely unique opportunity here at this moment in time. Innovation in the 21st century will be, and has already proven to be in the first few years, very different than the processes of innovation in the 20th century. And I mean that in particular, what we're facing and what I think is behind the genius of the 2030 strategy here in the kingdom is this notion of recognizing that the industrial age of the last 250 plus years is in its present form coming to an end. The notion of the extraction of natural resources as a principal driver of the economy, the notion of finding natural resources and heating them, beating them, bending them, smashing them, forcing them together, and then innovating from all of that is going to be an historical pathway to innovation as opposed to the future pathway to innovation. The future pathway to innovation, in fact, is going to be built around this notion of science and technology and discovery, but as enablers of design, the notion of designing from the framework that nature has provided us, the notion of designing from all of the empowerment of the photons from the sun that are being delivered to this planet, and then finding and designing advanced materials to use those photons from which we can build an entire economy. These are the kinds of ways and the kinds of methods by which we're going to be able to innovate and advance into the future. Now, all of this requires, as we've heard from the earlier speakers this morning, innovation in all things. So innovation and a strategy for innovation for impact, as is outlined in this meeting, is not just a product of doing more science, doing more laboratory science, building more advanced universities by themselves. Those are integral but insufficient to the innovation demands of the future. In fact, innovation in all things includes innovation in the design of educational institutions itself. We heard earlier that one of the things that we're facing now is that none of our institutions, including our educational institutions, are moving quickly enough. We're not adjusting fast enough. We're not able to lay the foundation quickly enough for the kinds of opportunities that the new economy itself will demand. Likewise, we also need not just restructuring of the education institutions themselves, we need restructuring of the way research is done itself. It, in and of itself, remains, in my view, which is one of the reasons that we've done so many things that we've done to build Arizona State University as a new kind of research university, this notion of research still being too narrow, being too disciplinarily focused, being insufficiently linked across a range of disciplines. All of these are areas in which innovations will also be required. Our economic systems require substantial innovations, and in particular, we need innovations in our economic systems wherein we can actually value decisions that we make now for generations into the future. Our economic systems at the moment are too limited in their time frames. They're too limited in their economic models to allow us to make multi-generational decisions. One of the fantastic things in the Kingdom's 2030 strategy is that it is an intergenerational, multi-generational decision-making process, and that's something that we need a lot more attention to. We heard earlier this morning that speed is an important area for innovation. Our institutions are, in general, and universities in particular, too slow. They do not make decisions quickly enough. They do not adjust quickly enough. They do not allow for processes for the infusion of new ideas quickly enough, in spite of their discoveries, in spite of the ways that they work. And so one of the areas that we've got to work on in terms of innovation is speed. This list that I'm walking through is what I hope that some of the roundtable discussions may focus on this morning, but let me lay down what I hope will be an important area of focus for the roundtable discussions, and that is, here's an area of innovation that is in need of tremendous attention, and perhaps it's so subtle as to be not recognized, and that is the notion of partnerships. It is actually the case that the world could benefit tremendously by the United States of America and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia working together to actually solve problems that impact everyone, not just our own economies. And what I mean by this is that if the two nations could come together and find ways to innovate around the idea of photonically driven economies, that is, using the sun to advance new technological outcomes and new economic opportunities in energy, in food, in water, in all of the things that we've been talking about. If those technologies could be derivative of recognized teams made up of people from vastly different cultures, but yet coming together to invent, to discover, to innovate, to drive the economy forward, to make those things happen, that in and of itself, that partnership may find a way to help us to break down some of the political, economic, cultural, and social divides that are still continuing to wreak havoc throughout the world itself. And so this notion of finding ways to partner together, finding ways to move together, is really important for our innovation impact opportunities. So today we're about to break up into various roundtables. And so what we're looking for from the roundtables are ideas for new, in a sense, new economies, new ways of thinking, new ways of designing, new ways of coming together, and new ways of partnering. The areas are specified in your materials, but we have a energy sector transition, as we've already suggested, the notion of photonic-driven economies. At my own institution, we have over 400 faculty research groups working on photonic-driven economic outcomes as a part of what we're doing. Just as a side, we're a new American research university, about 100,000 students, about 30,000 people involved in our research enterprise across a few thousand projects that we've got in a desert city of about 4 million people located in the southwestern part of the United States. And so the reason that I give you that little bit of detail on our particular institution is that it in and of itself is an innovation. It in and of itself is a differentiated enterprise from all previous universities that we now partner with. So our innovation roundtables today will focus on energy sector transition, They'll focus on arid agriculture, and I think the key thing there is resilience, how to find designed resilience. One of the things that we've built along the way is a 75 research group institute called the Biodesign Institute, which was mentioned, which basically operates under the assumption that nature has already solved all of the problems that we need to solve. We just have to figure out how to draw that design from nature to, in fact, apply it to our needs, for instance, in arid agriculture and resilience-oriented agriculture. Obviously, advanced materials, which KAUST is famous for, and I had a chance yesterday to visit some of the most fantastic laboratories, I think, that are operating anywhere on the planet with facilities that are quite remarkable. But this notion of advanced materials, again, designing our way, not just extracting things from the earth and heating it and beating it and bending it and melting it, but actually designing those things at the atomic structure up that we actually need to be able to solve our problems. One of the roundtable groups will focus on big data analytics, and the key there is the conceptualization of the use of data to help all decision-making about education, decision-making about scientific outcomes, decision-making about systems and complexities, and making these things happen. And so I'm hopeful that that roundtable can focus on what we might do together. We heard earlier about Industry 4.0, this whole notion of artificially intelligence-based decision-making, the whole new sectors for industry themselves, health and biosciences. Educational technology is another area that one of the focus groups will work on in terms of a roundtable. At my own institution, we have found ways with partners to change math outcomes, not just for elite university students, but for the general population. We're now of the view, working with folks at edX at MIT, that the math bugaboo, the math limit, is in fact a fake limit. It is a fake inherited assumption that people cannot learn advanced mathematics. They can learn advanced mathematics, and using advanced educational technologies, advanced adaptive artificial intelligence-based systems, which we're now applying. We have tens of thousands of students mastering mathematics, not just studying mathematics, but mastering mathematics in ways that we've never been able to experience before, and we think that that's powerful. Finally, the roundtables will also focus on entrepreneurship in all things. And so entrepreneurship does not mean just the building of business enterprises. Entrepreneurship for us means the design of outcomes that are derivative of all new ideas being able to move out of the mind of a person and into the framework from which they can be advanced. So we're excited to kick off the roundtables and very excited to be here, and we're very happy to be a part of this really important moment in history, this advancing of two countries thinking thoughtfully about the future of what the economy can be made around and how we can drive innovations to help shape that outcome for everyone. So thank you very much.
So now we'll start moving to the other building, Building 19, just across the road here. Just one quick announcement. At 1:15, there will be a signing ceremony. For those who will be signing, we definitely encourage you to be there on time. We are currently running fairly late on our schedule. With that, please let's move to the next room.
Esteemed guests, this concludes the opening section of our program. Please make your way to level 3. You will find ushers to guide you to the stairs or the elevators again to level 3, where our roundtables will begin. For more information, please check your iPad program, or you can reference the large screens that you will see outside of the auditorium and outside of the roundtables. Thank you very much.